Welcome, everyone,
Hello.
to another episode of
The Super Data Brothers Super Show.
That's right. I am Ryan.
I am Eric.
And we are two real-life brothers who work in the data and analytics industry. And have we got a good one for you today, folks?
You know, Ryan, I'm so excited for today's show because the Gartner MQ came out, and I haven't really looked into it, but you have. And you have some stuff prepared to talk about it, and I have some questions I'm probably going to ask. So I'm just looking forward to see what it's all about.
Listen.
And one note is I just got back from the dentist, so I might be a little mouth. So just forewarned.
Be forewarned. Listen, I took last year's report. I took this year's report. I put them both in the Chat GPT, and we're going to get all the... No, I'm kidding. I read them, guys.
Oh, God.
I read them. But this is a live show. So what does that mean practically? Well, it means that if you get your comments, your questions, your spicy takes, your reasons you love or hate Gartner into the chat with us here on LinkedIn or YouTube, we will respond. We will read them. We will respond. And if you let us know where you're watching from, as always, we will give you a shout out. So with that said, let's just jump into it and get going. All right. Super Data Show 2025 Magic Quadrant Boogaloo, right? What are we going to talk about today? We're not just going to dive into the chart. Everybody wants to see the chart. We have the chart. You can get the chart. We'll share a link with you where you can get this full report for free. But we're going to go over how not to read the Magic Quadrant first, because I think some people love this report and some people hate this report. And one of the things that they struggle with is they're not reading it correctly. They do not understand what the Magic Quadrant represents, what it does, and what it does not know, what it does not do. Okay. And then we'll talk about what drives it. We'll look at 2024 versus 2025, talk about key findings and analysis, and do vendor deep dives. All right, let's go. Before we go, we got to give a shout out to today's sponsor. That's right. Our season 3 sponsor, Good Data. Did you know that Good Data is on the Magic Quadrant? I did, because I wrote the entire application for the Magic Quadrant for Good Data. Good Data is a composable analytics platform. Really, I think what sets Good Data apart is Good Data is the analytics tool you choose when good enough is not good enough, right? When you need to design an experience for your users that is exactly in line with your vision and not compromised in any way. And the way they do that is with this robust set of development tools. You know, it does everything a BI tool should do, but under the hood, it's like a Lego kit. So if you need to build an app and that app needs to have its own drag and drop builder and its own AI assistant and some visualizations, but also all sorts of other custom stuff, its own custom UI, you can do that with Good Data in a way you just can't with other vendors. And I think that's why people really value it. So you can get your copy of today's Magic Quadrant report at the URL you see on the screen. And then we can paste it into the chat for you too, if I can find it here. Where did it go? Here we go. Right. So if you're watching on YouTube or LinkedIn, just go ahead and follow this link and that I pasted in the chat, and you will be able to get your own copy of the report so you can read along with us as we go through it. And we got a shout out here. Tom. Welcome back, Tom.
Hey, Dom.
You do finally show up, right? Tom, for the longest time, left comments on our show, but like the integration just didn't work for Tom for some reason.
Yeah.
But now it does, so everybody can see Tom and his excellent bow tie. It's a great bow tie, Tom. I appreciate a good bow tie. All right. So let's talk about the Magic Quadrant first, because here at the Super Data Brothers show, we straddle two worlds. Half of our audience are people who are, how would you describe them, Eric?
Well, half of our audience are like, they've either been doing Cognos for 20 years, or they're like a CTO or something, or like they're in the big BI world, enterprise. You know, like you've got to submit financial reports to the government, and those financial reports better be right.
Right.
And the other half is people who never heard of the term BI until Power BI became a thing.
Right. Yeah.
And like they're in the like, oh, why don't you just write that in Python world?
Yes,
so
exactly.
That's kind of our two audiences.
It's like
scheduling
enterprise...
a PDF. Who needs that? You
We
know?
hear that a lot, actually. It's like enterprise bros versus tech bros, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the tech bros do not take Gartner seriously. So we should touch on that a little bit. Who actually uses this thing? I would qualify it as big ass companies with big ass problems.
Uh-huh.
You
Yeah.
know, that's who it is. It's CEOs, it's CTOs, it's CIOs, it's CDOs. They take it really seriously. And I can tell you, as someone who works at one of these Gartner Magic Quadrant vendors, that even though we're a niche player at Good Data, we still generate a significant amount of revenue from our presence on this report.
Oh yeah,
Real
even though
talk.
you're in the like you're not in the top
No.
quadrant, you still
Yeah.
just the fact that like, oh, this is someone to consider is like probably why
It-
what people look at it as.
It helps us bigly.
Mhm.
If you're curious ever what the process is like, it's how they generate the report. That's another thing that I think people don't understand. So a lot of times I hear that it's just kind of like, oh, these analysts and like their vibes and who their favorites are. And look, they're human beings. Everybody has favorites. But the actual process, I promise you, is exhaustive and tries to be extremely objective. So it's a huge series of questions, like very specific questions you have to answer. You have to create a video demo for each one of the questions. You have to create a 45-minute video brief that covers business performance, key innovations, all these changes in your company. Did you add executives? Did you lose executives? All of that sort of stuff. So it's, like I said at the beginning, I pretty much wrote our entire application this year, like I usually do in my role here at Good Data. And I promise you, this is not a bunch of Gartner analysts sitting in a room thinking about who they like the most and who paid them the most money, right? I'm not going to tell you that none of those things factor in, because again, we're dealing with like a human institution, but it is very in depth and strives for objectivity. And I also want to talk about what it measures and what it does not measure, right? So it does not measure strictly software capabilities. They have a report that measures strictly software capabilities. It's called the Gartner Critical Capabilities Report.
Capabilities report. Doesn't that come out like?
Well, I can't tell you when it's coming out, but it's coming out very soon.
Yeah, well, usually, well, I'm not asking for specific. I'm just saying, like, usually from past years, it's like the Magic Quadrant comes out within a couple months. The critical capabilities comes out. That's how it usually goes.
It is like it's like the how would I describe the critical capabilities report? It's like the younger sibling who's less famous but better.
Oh yeah,
you know,
it doesn't like go into details of like
it's like the difference between me and you. You're the younger sibling who's less famous but better.
Yeah, right. Hey, listen. I have wins in Super Smash Brothers tournaments. People know my tag, bro.
That's true. He's a much more accomplished pro gamer than I am. So the critical capabilities report is just about the software. It's just like, what are the features? What do they do? Right. And are they good? This report is different. It measures the software capabilities, yes, but it also measures things like market presence and business momentum. And that is included in like all of our applications for them during the process include that sort of stuff. So they're looking at like your actual business performance, and that factors in your ranking here. They're looking into your presence on social media. Do you have a credible presence on social media? Do you have, they look at job listings. Is it easy to find resources to work on your tool? All those things will give you a better positioning here. Whereas the critical capabilities report, which we'll cover when it comes out, hopefully, is totally different. And it is just about the software. So if all you care about are the software features, you should read the critical capabilities report. If what you care about is the total picture of a vendor, you read the Magic Quadrant. And that's the difference between those two reports and what this one actually measures. I'm a big fan of critical capabilities. I think more people should read it.
Yeah, it seems to be like it'd be more useful for like an actual decision as far as like this is what we actually need in our organization.
Right. Right. And that's another one of the reasons like why, like I would say if you're a huge company, you should maybe rely more on the Magic Quadrant, because all that stuff around the software capabilities matters a lot more to you. Right. Is like the vendor's trajectory, and is it going to be supported in 15 years? Because, once you install it, you're probably never uninstalling it. Right. Whereas if you're at a smaller company, you may be focused more on the critical capabilities because all you care about is what does the software do and does it meet my needs? All right. Gartner makes this point too, right? This is directly copied from the report on how to read the report. And
Yep.
they really say, don't use it in isolation and don't impose your own definitions of what the axes mean onto the report. People really do this a lot, is they look at it and the most simplistic way is what they say here, product vision and market share. So the y-axis is market share and the x-axis is product vision, and ergo the chart. And Gartner is really explicit in saying don't read it that way, right? Like read the report and then don't impose onto the chart your definition of what the chart means. This is a real problem because I would say the number of people who see the chart in any year is probably in the hundreds of thousands.
Mm-hmm.
But the number who read the report is much smaller. And now that they can just drop it in ChatGPT, it's going to be even smaller still. So that's a real issue here. And then finally, and you'll see this again later on, but like the other way to not read the report is to say, one axis is popular, the other axis is good, and you should only look at the ones in the upper right because they're popular and good, and the ones in the lower left are unpopular and bad.
I mean, like the chart itself kind of lends itself to interpreting it that way.
It does,
right?
Yes.
It's like it's just you can't totally blame people for being like, oh, let's see. Well, this is good on both of the axes that this is measuring. So this is the one.
This best one. Exactly. That's why we're prefacing, like we haven't even talked about what's in the report yet, right? But we're prefacing it with all this stuff of like how to interpret what we're about to talk about. We're in that lower left quadrant at Good Data. We closed a huge deal this year. Like the biggest deal, by far the biggest deal of the year was based on someone who found us from this report because they read the report. They didn't just look at
they actually read the details and they felt like, oh.
And they said, hey,
this actually might be good for us.
This niche player does exactly what we need. All right. So as you know, there are 4 places you can be: leaders, challengers, visionaries, and niche players. And I think what this really means is like leaders have it all going on. Challengers have an extremely strong business, but maybe not the broadest set of addressable use cases. Visionaries have a very broad set of addressable use cases, but the business isn't as strong. And then niche players, again, and I'm oversimplifying here, but like niche players do something so extraordinarily well that they merit inclusion in this report. That's kind of how I look at it, right? And so that's one way to look at it. Now, the 2 axes are completeness of vision and what's the other one? Ability to execute.
Yeah.
And so completeness of vision encompasses all these things. And I'm not going to go through all of these, but I will say that you'll notice this is, again, not just software features. The x-axis is not just software features. Like, what do you see on here, right? You see a lot of stuff that's not related to how good is the software, like marketing strategy and innovation.
Geographic strategy.
Correct. Like,
are you only in Europe or
right?
Are you,
right? So it's a lot more than just how good is the software. And Tom makes a point. That's how most 2x2 matrices always work. So it's inevitable, right? Exactly, Tom.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's a hard thing not to get caught up in. And then ability to execute again measures a little bit more of the market execution, right? Like the I would say it's almost like intangibles and tangibles, right? Or qualitative and quantitative.
Mm-hmm.
This is a little more of the quantitative stuff, right? Sales, pricing, and execution, marketing execution, but that's what the axes mean.
But the ability to execute, is it measuring like the company's ability to execute? Or like the tool's ability, like if you buy the tool, your ability to execute?
No, it is measuring, I believe, the company's ability to execute, right?
Okay.
Again, it's measuring the company, not the software. The Magic Quadrant measures the company.
I think that's the main point. That's a good way to put it. Like it measures the company.
Right. All right. So what changed between 2024 and 2025? And we're going to pop all the quadrants up on the screen. Don't worry, you'll get your dots. Okay. Mm-hmm. But we're going to set the stage before we talk about dots. So there was a big narrative change. I think when we look at it, at the chart itself, people may look at it and think, okay, this wasn't a big shakeup year, and it wasn't. But the narrative that they write changed a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say 2024 was the last year that the narrative of the report was really focused on the Tableau way of doing things. So the narrative of the 2024 report is about dashboards, visualization, data blending, and data discovery. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The narrative of the 2025 report is much broader. It's about a lot about AI, yes, but it's also about like composability. It's about like analytics as code and DevOps integration. It's about semantic layers. It's about just the narrative itself, the vibe.
So is the new narrative like how? So basically, the things you're focusing on are things like, okay, how good it will integrate into AI.
Yeah, a lot
AI
of it has to do with that, right? And
Yeah.
like embeddability, embedding is its own product category now, or its own category or capability in the report, right? Embedded analytics, whereas last year it really wasn't. And there's a lot of stuff like that. So look, if you've been watching this show, now we've been doing this for what, 3 years?
Yeah, like 2 to 3 years.
If you've been watching this show for a while, you know that we talk a lot about this move away from like desktop BI and building dashboards on spreadsheets. And look, these things take time. So our very first episode was Tableau is dead. And we were making this point that this move is happening. And now here it is a few years later, and Gartner has kind of caught up to what we've been saying, that this move is happening. And now we're really seeing it happen in the market, that the idea of I'm going to give Tableau to 1,000 data analysts, and then they're going to do stuff. And like value is going to magically appear. It's going to rise out of the chaos, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's like a value is an emergent property of 1 million analysts building dashboards.
Oh yeah, organizations are starting to see that, right?
Right.
Like internally, where I'm at, we're seeing some departments moving from Tableau, which is just basically this desktop visualization tool, to Power BI, which is has a bit more features.
Right. It's friendly to Tableau people, but it integrates with a stack.
With like the Fabric stack and like the I don't know what it's called, the Fabric Lakehouse, or what, I don't know what they're calling it. They're calling it something like that. They'll probably rename it in 2 months to Copilot Lakehouse.
Yeah. So here's the money quote from me from Gartner's market definition that really hammers it home. For more than 20 years, visual exploration-based dashboards and reports have been the primary way users monitor and explore data. However, time spent in curated, predefined dashboards will be complemented and even displaced partially by automated, conversational, and dynamically generated insights. This is the dashboards are dead story.
Yep.
All right. Part 2. This is interesting. They actually get into what are the benefits of ABI platforms in this report, which is not something they've done in the past. So I don't want to really hammer this point. You can read them. It's operational efficiency, scalability, and flexibility, enhanced collaboration, communication, managed governance, and trust. They don't actually talk about this.
ABI is that analytics and business intelligence.
That's what ABI stands for, right?
Okay.
That's what they call it.
The terms are so muddied and combined. I guess you got to call out both.
Exactly. ABI platforms. But you notice what they're not talking about, like the benefits you'll get from ABI. They're not talking about visualization or storytelling or data discovery or self-service or anything.
What about
like
actionable insights? Are they talking about actionable insights?
I don't recall reading a ton of the word actionable insight in this report.
If you ask ChatGPT, always talks about actionable insights.
Yeah.
Like, your training data must have been from 2 years ago to 10 years ago.
Exactly.
That's your period, because actionable insights.
Yeah. We'll see if it starts recommending Hadoop, then we'll know it's really regressed.
We'll know it's
so here are the features list, okay? And they break them into 2 buckets, mandatory and common. And you'll notice that there's been some features were added, some dropped. For example, data science integration has been dropped, right? Data source connectivity is a new one because they're now viewing that BI platforms, it's more and more important that a BI platform be able to connect to many different data sources and even integrate and federate those data sources together. So again, this is that evidence of movement. Data source connectivity has always been important, but in the world of 50% of my analytics are built on someone's spreadsheet, it's not as important as it is now, that we're kind of returning. It's like a modern version of what we had 15 years ago in the Cognos business objects world, where I think the platform is now expected to be bigger. It's expected to accomplish more and serve more use cases. So BI really narrowed, and now it's broadening again. So these are the different things that they, mandatory, of course, is like all tools must have these, and then common is like many tools have them, but not all.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that data science integration dropped off, because I think as companies, as time goes on, companies are realizing that data science, it's actually not that useful for us if we don't have some way of getting getting some intelligence output from that data science team, right?
Yeah. Well, this is I think the Achilles heels of data science programs historically is a failure to operationalize outside
100%.
of the biggest tech firms. If data is your business,
yes,
then you operationalized easily. But if data is not your business, your data science team did a lot of neat stuff, and then nobody knew.
Oh, that's cool. And that's okay. Well, what? Okay. Well, wow. More people show up and fall for our hotel business when this happens. Okay, how do I tell the hotels that? You know?
Right, exactly.
How do we tell the partner hotels that? What do we do with this? It's cool.
Send an email. Yeah.
Send an email? I don't know.
So the final thing, and this is just kind of an they have this market overview, and the big thing I would highlight from this is from the market overview is that last year it was the market is dipping its toes into AI, and now we're seeing vendors add AI features at all levels of the BI stack. So that is, yes, natural language query, but it's also natural language generation of data models or reports or dashboards or AI doing data blending for you or data cleaning for you. All the vendors are incorporating these Gen AI capabilities into every layer of what they do. And that's the big change. Otherwise, this narrative, I would say, is fairly similar to last year. It specifically calls out Microsoft as dominating the market, like it did last year. And it also talks about, and this is something really interesting that I talked to Juan Cicada about at the Databricks conference, but that was just the number of vendors who appear to be trying to produce their own full data stacks within their tooling is not just tech vendors anymore. So Databricks does it, Snowflake does it, Microsoft does it, Google does it, but Juan's company
they added
a semantic layer and BI tool. Yes.
Yeah, we reviewed that a couple of weeks ago.
But what's going on now is Juan's company, Data.World, was acquired by ServiceNow. Right? Now, ServiceNow buying a knowledge catalog and knowledge graph company is pretty interesting. If you think about, does ServiceNow want to acquire a full stack? Maybe ServiceNow will buy a BI tool.
Yeah.
To be able to offer that to their users. And they call that out in this report, that more and more companies are adding BI capabilities to their existing SaaS application or cloud platform. So the specialist BI vendors are kind of, if you go back 20 years in the market, the whole market was specialist vendors, with the exception of Microsoft, maybe. Everybody was pretty much a standalone BI vendor. And we've just seen that consolidation happen. And now we've entered a stage where the specialist BI vendors are special because everyone is adding BI capabilities to their stack. So again, we're about to look at the chart. Okay, here's the moment, right? But it's just a reminder. Just go over it one more time. How not to read the chart, right? This is how not to read the chart. Okay, here it comes. Dun, da, da, da. Here's the magic quadrant. All right. And as a reminder, once again, you can get your own copy of this if you would like your very own chart to stare at. You can get it at this, not that link. Where's the link?
You can go to that link. And give a like and a subscribe. But
oh, there we go. Here we go. Yeah, please like and subscribe that link. This link, right? That link, you can catch it in the comments on both YouTube and LinkedIn. If you would like to get your own copy of the report, this is a complimentary copy available through Good Data. Of course, in the spirit of full disclosure, Good Data is a vendor on this chart. You can see it. And I work at Good Data.
I
And
don't.
So Eric does not, right? So we're only half compromised.
Yeah, I work for a university, so I can say whatever I want.
That's right. So here's the Magic Quadrant, and we'll go over who moved where, what, and why. But right off the bat, we had to say goodbye to our dearly departed friend Spotfire, who has left the Magic Quadrant. Yeah. What was it, like? Press F for to pay respects or something like that.
Yeah, press F to pay respects. That's the meme.
And then we now welcome to the Magic Quadrant Sigma, who you can see in kind of the top left position in the niche players quadrant. And this is a pretty good entry point, I got to say, for a vendor. The best entry point ever for a vendor was Tableau, and they entered about where Domo is, maybe to the left of Domo a little bit.
Yeah.
But Sigma's is really strong, which is not surprising. Sigma announced $100 million in annual recurring revenue recently. Their team has been growing like crazy. I think their executive team is strong and knows how to do this. I will tell you, the people I talk to who work at Sigma make it sound like it's very business focused and results oriented. And by that, I mean that like they drive you right, like grind you into the dust. That's what I've been told. But hey, it's a great position here on the Magic Quadrant. So look at it, take it in. I don't know, Eric, is there anything on here that stands out as particularly surprising to you in your first glance at it?
Everything looks the same.
Yeah, that's the big surprise, isn't it?
Hey, like without comparing like one to the other, which we're going to do. What, next slide?
Next slide.
Okay.
All right.
But like without comparing directly, it's hard to say. Like one thing that sticks out, and probably talk about this more in the next slide, but like I would have expected Tableau to maybe move down a bit. It doesn't look like it has. Like next slide, we'll see exactly where it moved.
Yeah, you'll see. So here's where everybody moved, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the overall is there was a lot of movement to the right.
Mm-hmm.
Just like kind of let your eyes zone out and just get the general feel.
Okay, so the red circle is where it started. Follow the red line to the blue circle, and that's where it is.
That's how you read this chart. The red circle is where it started.
Where it was last year.
Where it was last year, and the blue circle is where it is this year.
Gotcha.
And so you can see there was a lot of movement up and to the right. Overall, I think maybe there was a lot of movement to the right, and if you look at all the arrows, maybe a small net movement up. Mm-hmm. But you have some companies that made big movements down, right? Incorda, for example, made a big movement down. Strategy B, who we'll talk about later, made a big movement down, although they moved way to the right. So if I were working at Strategy B, I'd probably feel pretty good about this report overall. And then you can see like the leaders are just more leadery. Everybody who was in the leaders quadrant. So last year, Click and Google were a little in the leaders quadrant, right? And now they're a lot in the leaders quadrant. They're smack dab in the middle of it. Yeah, like really neck and neck with Tableau. Microsoft is, of course, running away with it. Yeah. Everybody else, Salesforce, Google, and Click are really close together. You can see Oracle's vision got much more complete, but their ability to execute went down a little. ThoughtSpot essentially just moved to the right. The big movers here are Strategy B had the big, like if you just look at how long the line is, Strategy B.
Oh yeah, it went from the top left quadrant challengers to the bottom right.
Right. They made a huge move. You can see Sisense made a huge move, I would say, in the wrong direction. Mm-hmm. I mean, they moved up, but they moved really far to the left. They're now the most to the left of any vendor. Incorda, conversely, moved down a lot, but very far to the right. And Good Data, here at Good Data, we moved up a little and a lot to the right. And and I can tell you we're quite happy with it internally. One funny one I would like to point out, and I know a lot of our fans are IBM guys and Cognos guys, is just IBM has basically been moving like 10 pixels back and forth in this area for like 5 years, it feels like, Yeah. Just like
it found a local minimum and it's just
it's almost like it's circling a drain.
Yeah.
No. And then it's just going to fall through the back of the chart.
Hey, Cognos still does stuff that none of these other people even know they need to do.
Yeah.
Schedule PDFs. That's it.
Right.
scheduled
Someone should make a
PDFs.
startup. Then you come up with a really cool name, and it uses AI to generate scheduled PDF reports.
You know, Ryan, if we started it,
Well,
you know,
we
hire
just
a
don't
couple-
have any entrepreneurial spirit.
no entrepreneurial. Guess not.
That's right. There was one other thing. Oh, the leaders quadrant is really crowded now. If you go back, I think 3 years, it was just Microsoft, Tableau, and Click.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's Oracle, ThoughtSpot, Click, Google, Salesforce, and Microsoft. So a lot of people are now considered leaders. And you can also see,
didn't that happen when when Gartner decided that like enterprise features doesn't matter anymore? So like a bunch of stuff dropped out, and then like now only dashboards matter. That when they were in that phase, like the 2010s phase.
Yeah, when it became just Microsoft and Tableau.
Yeah.
Yes, that is when that happened. We have another comment here. Still get bursting questions. Yeah,
people still need it.
Exactly.
Even I was talking to a little while ago at the university, our sport performance, and it's like you think, oh, it's sports analytics. They need PDFs because they have different teams, different players, and they all need a handout.
Right.
You need bursting PDFs.
Right. And that is the classic feature that the half of our audience the tech bro half of our audience, it says, who wants this? Who wants a PDF? Mm-hmm. And that's one of those tell me you've never worked at a big company without telling me you've never worked at a big company statements.
Yeah.
All right. So the winners and losers, if you wanted to break it down, you can look at it here. People who improved in both dimensions: Microsoft, Salesforce, Google, Click, Zoho, SAS, Tellius, and Good Data. And you'll notice a lot of these, like, they were already the leaders. It's basically the leaders all lead more.
Yeah.
They all got better, and then some of the smaller vendors also got better.
You know, Ryan, I noticed there are 4 categories here, right?
Yeah.
Maybe you should have your own Magic Quadrant movement, Magic Quadrant.
Yeah, Magic Quadrant movement, Magic Quadrant, where the dot represents how much you moved on the Magic Quadrant.
Yes.
Yeah, I should do that. I would look forward to that call from Gartner's legal department.
Uh-huh.
Things to point out that are interesting. Let's just go back one slide too. Like Amazon shot way up. So Amazon, they're saying, is this, in terms of ability to execute, is number 2, is what Gartner is now saying.
Okay.
So curious.
I mean, we reviewed QuickSight. QuickSight was a good tool.
It's fine, but that gets to the question, and we'll address it as we look at some of these specific vendor scores and responses. Is what counts as BI?
Yeah, good point.
What counts as BI? And are we really looking at BI features anymore, or is this really the Gartner Enterprise Data Platform Magic Quadrant at this point? I would argue it is, and you'll see some of the things they talk about here. Why? Okay,
that's true.
Everyone got better, at least in some way, with the exception of Domo.
Yeah.
Domo, now they didn't move far. Okay. Domo didn't move far. They went like from here to here. Whoop, 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 whoop. But it was negative in both axes. So that's kind of, there's your Magic Quadrant. Who moved where, what, when, and why. Let's take a look at some of the vendors. Okay, let's talk about Microsoft, the market leader. And you'll see what do they say is good. Now, I'm summarizing here. Read the report. Read the report. Here is your link to your free copy of the report, courtesy of Good Data. Microsoft has been the leader now for, I don't know, 6 years?
Yeah, something like that.
Tableau was the leader before that. Now it's Microsoft. And if you look at what do they say is good about Microsoft and what do they say is bad about Microsoft, there's not a single thing here about the software. Well, there's one, I would say. The bottom bullet point in the bad: resource hog risk, no native workload isolation, hurts performance and cost. So what they mean by that is if you have one job, you can't like isolate high cost jobs on Azure. So if you have like some hog of a report being built and it can soak in workspace A. It can soak your entire cluster.
Yep.
And workspace B and C have bad performance now because of workspace A.
Yep. And the only way to actually to separate that would have different you pay different capacities, but then instead of having one big capacity, you're paying for two separate capacities, which is just more money.
Exactly.
For no reason.
Exactly. But none of this has anything to do with Power BI.
No.
Right? Now their narrative talks about Power BI, of course, right? But these are kind of the summaries, the three things Gartner says are good and bad. Or what did they call them? Cautions and something. Anyway, this is all about Microsoft. Again, so this comes back to, this is not a report about the software. It is a report about the companies.
Mm-hmm.
So Microsoft sells everything to everyone. And that's true. As someone who competes with Microsoft, the hardest thing to compete with is not Power BI and Microsoft's feature set. It's their sales team and ubiquity.
Mm-hmm.
And then they talk a lot about Fabric, right? Like the good thing about Microsoft is Fabric is a one-stop shop. It can do ML, it can do AI, it can do data blending.
There's a data lake. There's a data lake house.
Exactly. And that begs the question: wait, isn't this the business intelligence Magic Quadrant? And so I think some of these vendors are really being judged not on their business intelligence tool. They're being judged on the total ecosystem of their data platform within the business intelligence Magic Quadrant. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's fair. That's where we are now as a BI industry, is BI workloads are becoming subsumed into the total data platform experience.
Yeah.
And so as someone, I don't have to like it. I don't like it. I'm a BI hipster. I want my niche weird tools from Brooklyn, right?
Yeah. They can just connect to the data warehouse.
Exactly. They ride a fixed gear bike. They have a record collection. I don't know what hipsters do now because I'm too old, but that's what they did back when I was one. So that's just like, this is really what it boils down to. And then Copilot, just the halo effect of Copilot. Copilot is a strong brand that they're all that your boss is telling you you're required to use in Word now. And Power BI can ride along on that. So again, none of this has to do with Microsoft software capabilities or anything like that. And the same thing, if you look at what's bad about Microsoft, it's price hikes. It's only runs on Azure. So you can't do any multi-cloud. And it's and it is this issue about native workload isolation.
Yep.
Now, when we look at other vendors, it's going to talk a lot more about features. But for Microsoft, it's all about the Microsoft experience and what's good and bad about the Microsoft experience.
So like this slide is basically, well, you're already paying for it, really.
Yeah. Right.
It's like, the sales line.
So you already own this. I don't know if you could hear it. Juniper's home, which you can tell by the incessant screeching in the background. So hopefully that's
no screeching.
isolated.
No screeching.
All right. It's summertime. It's summertime here at the Super Data Fortress of Solitude, and as a consequence, the kids are home all the time. All right, let's talk about Sigma. These are the new guys. What's good about Sigma? Sigma's very interesting. And again, now let's look at what's good for Sigma. And you'll notice there's no arrow because they didn't move anywhere. They appeared. What's good about Sigma is all product features. It's the spreadsheet native UX. And I think this is what Sigma brought to market first that they really nailed, that has helped them enormously. Is using Sigma is like using Excel. The calculations in Sigma are Excel calculations. They do all the things that Excel does. It has a spreadsheet interface where you can treat it like Excel. It is not Excel. It's not like a BI environment that hosts Excel, but it's so Excel-like that anyone who knows Excel. Like I have here, lets noobs query the warehouse without new skills.
Yeah, so like you can like reference other cells and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Like okay.
Yep. And then they have what they call Alpha Query, which is an engine that, like the performance is really great. Huge data stays fast and cheap. What's interesting, and I don't know if this is still true, but I was doing some competitive research on Sigma, and what I found seemed to indicate that if you have Sigma on top of Snowflake, it can work in conjunction with Snowflake's cache, and it really does work great. But if you have it on top of anything else, like it just doesn't work as well at all. That's the impression I got from the docs. Now, this was probably a year ago, so maybe it's changed. But That would be a caveat. I would say, like, read the docs and see if that's still true if you're not a Snowflake customer, because it did seem like one of Sigma's go-to-market strategies was to buddy up with Snowflake really tightly, and that also was true within the product itself, that the product worked better with Snowflake than other databases. And then they get called out again here for embedding, right? Oh, their embedding's really strong. So that's all product feature stuff, What's bad? Now look what they get dinged for. No single vendor ecosystem. It lacks its own cloud. So there's integration work. It's not just like you log into the cloud portal and you hit install and now you have Sigma.
Yeah.
That is not a.
That's outside of the BI tool. Yeah, you're right.
Right. It has nothing to do with the BI tool.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with the BI tool. But Gartner really puts a huge premium on the integration with the rest of the data platform. And that's why if you go back here and look at who all the leaders are, it's data platform. Click is now a data platform. They don't own their own database, I don't think, but they've acquired ETL tools and all sorts of stuff, data catalogs. They bought Upsolver, where our friend Shantona worked. So it's all Oracle. Like, the only person in the leaders quadrant who is not a data platform mega vendor is ThoughtSpot. That's the only one. And the only data platform mega vendors who are not in the leaders quadrant, the only one is AWS. So that's Sigma, right? They also ding them for being new. Like, again, that's fair. This is a measurement of the company, not of the software. Not
of the tool.
You can ding them for being new. And then their NLQ, NLG is not as strong. I'd expect to see Sigma making strides in this market. I think they're executing very well as a company. They have eyes on the prize. We can talk about, like, what is the Sigma strategy. I feel like they've reached a point where they're worth so much that they would be hard to acquire. For a long time, I thought their strategy was to get bought by Snowflake, especially now that Databricks has its own BI tool. And Snowflake, like, has some BI-ish capabilities, but they're like nothing compared to Databricks BI capabilities. So I figured, okay, Snowflake's going to buy Sigma. But at 100 million ARR, like, Sigma's worth so much money.
Yeah.
That's
a big buy.
It's a big buy. So maybe they're shooting for IPO. I don't know. Amazon Web Services in the Challenger. Now here, what do they get called out for? The number one thing is the seamless integration with the data platform. QuickSight, you have Redshift, Athena, SageMaker, all sorts of stuff. And it's really easy to plug QuickSight into it. The pricing, QuickSight is cheap. It is super cheap.
It's soup. I'm not, but we reviewed this 2 years ago. But if the pricing is anything similar, it's basically, it's like pay as you go, basically. It's like really cheap for a couple users, and then if you want the more enterprise features, you can pay to turn them on. It's basically like turn it on for $500 a month, and then usage after that.
Exactly.
That's really cheap for like an enterprise tool. It's really cheap.
I think when we reviewed it, the reader pricing was $5 per reader, and now it's $3 per reader.
They're going down. Well, I think we talked about that. Like, QuickSight is not an independent BI tool. QuickSight is Amazon's, like, oh, you're using the Amazon stack? Why don't you use our BI tool too?
Why not use our BI system? It almost feels like the purpose of QuickSight's existence is not to make money for Amazon. It's to prevent Google and Microsoft from making money.
From making money from people who already have, like, stuff in the Amazon, have, like, their database, their data warehouse in the Amazon cloud.
Exactly. And then they get called out for serverless scalability. So it does, it has this serverless auto scale for concurrency, and you don't have to do a lot. It's almost the anti Power BI in that respect.
Yep.
Where Power BI, you are, like, bound to these capacity reservations you've made. Yep. And if your capacity gets soaked, like, sorry.
And then all your stuff slows down.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you use prepay for, like, number of cores type blah, blah, blah.
Right. I mean, it's like, Power BI's licensing is like licensing. It's like back when we bought what was it called? Oracle's data warehouse appliance. Oh, I'm blanking on it. Anyway, it's like installing on-prem. Like, you need to, Exadata. It's like buying Exadata, right? Like you're going to buy a certain amount of memory and a certain number of CPUs, and that's what you get. So even though it's on the cloud, you're really paying for it like it's on-prem. Now they get so here's where one area where I would say Gartner is like everything is bad. So like let's look at Sigma. They don't have a single vendor ecosystem. They lack their own cloud. So buyers, so there's too much integration work. Now let's look at the downside of Amazon. They do have a single vendor ecosystem. And so you can't deploy it wherever you want. And that's bad. And I think to Gartner's credit, this seems a little weird, but to Gartner's credit, I think that actually these are the complaints they hear.
Yeah.
If you're on a platform that allows you to do multi-cloud, your complaint is, oh, I got to do all this work myself. I got to install it myself. Right? And if you're on a platform where you're locked into Amazon, you're like,
oh, I can't connect. Oh, we have this cloud service. We can't connect to it.
Right.
We have to do these dumb extracts.
Exactly. So it's one of those walls. It's like a grass is greener thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's what this report reflects. Weak metrics layer. Their metrics layer sucks.
Yes.
It's just data sets. It is like it's like if you're building BI on spreadsheets.
Yes.
You can query Redshift, so it's not 100% like that. But like the in-tool data modeling is just data sets.
Yeah, it's like it's non-existent essentially.
And then you got to pay more for all this governance stuff. You want the catalog, you want audit, you want, right? You got to pay for all this stuff.
Piecemeal.
Well, I mean, that fits in 100% with what you said, Eric, which is, what is Amazon's goal? Is it to make money on BI? No. It's to get you using all this other stuff.
Yeah, to keep you from leaving.
Right.
Like,
right.
Oh, well, we're going to buy this other tool and it can connect it to Amazon.
And it makes perfect sense. If Amazon didn't have QuickSight, then everybody would be taking the gargantuan amount of data that's on AWS and they would just be piping it into Microsoft and piping it into Google. And they don't want that. So that's why they made a BI tool. Let's talk about good data.
Hey.
So I said earlier on that when you're in the niche, it means it doesn't mean that it means that you do something so extraordinarily well that it merits inclusion in the Magic Quadrant. And I don't think good data, or I don't think Gartner and I 100% agree on what that thing is that we do extraordinarily well. But I'm fine with that as long as we stay in the quadrant. So what do they call us out for? It's the composability first design, analytics as code, DevOps, and headless BI. And then they double down on the headless BI with the metrics layer and the open semantic store. So this is really like, that's what they view us as being special about us. And I think that's largely true. I think what really makes us special and why we're included on here, is especially to me, this analytics as code and our ability to, like, our customers really like us because we can innovate really quickly. And that's a function of where we are as a company. We're small. We have a great engineering team in Prague. They can really innovate very, very quickly. Now, the dark side of that is what they call us out here for here. It requires mature data ops, right? Real payoff needs strong engineering and governance already in place. Yeah. If you buy us to use us like we're Tableau, you made a mistake. You need to have some people on your team with engineering skills or at least the prompting skills to get Claude to do it for you.
Yeah.
In order to make the most out of good data. But if you have those skills, then you can build whatever you want. And that's what makes us strong. They call us out for a thin augmented UX. I mean, this is a work in progress. We're putting a ton of investment in here. And then they say low market momentum. I don't like this phrasing because we had our best year practically ever in 2024 from like a business perspective. But it's true. We're a niche vendor. We have a smaller customer base than many of the other vendors on here. It's growing fast, but it's small. Premium pricing is interesting. I don't, is our pricing really premium? I don't feel like it's that expensive, but whatever. That's good data. We moved a long way though. And a big shout out to my good data team who all helped make this happen this year. All right. And then we want to talk about strategy B, right? Woo,
yeah.
HODL, baby.
What's
Let's get
that?
that Bitcoin.
The strategy is buy and hold Bitcoin.
That's the strategy. That's what the B part of strategy B stands for, baby. It's a rocket ship to the moon. Let's buy Cadillacs for our wives' boyfriends. Let's go.
It's funny. It's like they bet that the future would be insane, and they were right.
And they were right. Yeah, we live in the insane world, especially now that we've totally deregulated the crypto industry. I really look forward to this enhanced wealth transfer from.
Yes, things that used to be scams in crypto. First of all, crypto, it's like its main thing is like to get around like money regulations. But
its purpose is to do scams.
Things that were still illegal in scams, if you did them in crypto, now we're fine.
They're now legal. Yeah,
they're now legal.
Yeah, the president is running
the DOJ didn't they straight
up disbanded the crypto crime division.
Yeah, they straight up there were cases that were going to go, but then they just got dropped.
Yeah, so hey, congratulations, Strategy B, for betting that we would live in the worst future run by criminals.
You succeeded.
Here we are. I feel like we're regressing to like the Roman Empire.
Basically.
Well, it is. I mean, we are.
Yeah.
We're going from a republic to some post-republic. Anyway, enough with that. Let's talk about the actual software. They made the biggest move, I think, if you just measure the length of the dot, right? How far the dot moved. They made the biggest move of anyone. And the point I want to make here is that I don't think this has so much to do with that there's two things that can make a dot move. There's your software made huge strides and your company made huge strides, or Gartner's definition of the market moved in your direction.
You stayed the same. The market moved.
Right. Because strategy B, it just feels goofy to even call it that. This is MicroStrategy, everybody. For those of you who don't know, they changed their name to Strategy B because 95% of the company's value is Bitcoin.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I didn't know we were talking about MicroStrategy.
This is MicroStrategy.
Okay.
So MicroStrategy here, Strategy B, I don't think, and I will admit, I could be wrong. I could be wrong that actually they launched some new version of the product. It's incredible. And the product has changed so much. I don't think that's the case. I think because this is an old company with, let's be real, its core is pretty old technology. I think that the market, Gartner's definition of the market shifted in a huge way towards Strategy B. So what do they get called out for? Composable analytics and enterprise governance. Okay. Those are things that 3 years ago, Gartner said didn't matter. And now they're really important. This has helped us too. Our software did get a lot better, I would say, but also the market moved in our direction. Because things like governance that in 2020 it was like, who does governance, right? It's about beautiful dashboards.
We need
done
dashboards quick. We need to impress the CTO right tomorrow.
Tomorrow, right? Yeah, it's totally changed, and the market has totally changed. And then what do they get dinged on? Feature gaps, ecosystem tailwind, premium price, and ramp. Yeah. I mean, it's an old hard tool to implement. Its core is like a Cognos,
Yeah.
It's been an independent company this whole time. So imagine like if Cognos had never been bought, it would be, its core would still be this old reporting tool.
Yeah.
But I bet everything around that core would be a
lot better.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's where Strategy B is. So it's prediction time. And thank you for those of you who have joined us. Listen, you can get your own complimentary copy of this report at the link on the screen. So check it out. Good data. We're on the report and as such, we are able to license it for your enjoyment. So read the whole thing. Don't just look at the image. Don't even just watch this. Read it yourself. Or ask ChatGPT to read it for you.
Ask ChatGPT to read it for you. That works.
So it's prediction time. I'm predicting there's no big shakeup coming unless there is.
Ooh, cover those bases.
I've given up on this one. I think that I expected last year and then maybe again this year there to be a big market shakeup as the definition of the market moves more towards governance, composability, metrics layers, AI and away from just making dashboards. But I think that we've entered a stage in the tech industry where the major players just have so much power
That's it's just gonna keep
that
going.
that even as the market adjusts, I think what we're used to in tech is like you get these big vendors and then innovation stalls out and then the little guys rise and become the new big vendors. And I think that's still happening to some degree, but I think the tech companies have gotten so much better at adapting. And then either look, there's a good way and a bad way. They adapt, they build new products or they acquire products that allow them to live in the new world and thrive in the new world. They also use their market power to crush competitors and new ways of doing things.
Yeah. Well, that's like, I think we've talked about this. Like, is Power BI going to become like Microsoft Word?
Right. Yeah.
Just like
it's like the only BI tool.
BI is all that means. The Power BI.
It just means Power BI. Right. Yeah. So I don't know. I'm at the end of this episode, the last 2 or 3 years, I've said there's going to be a big shakeup. I'm not so sure. I've given up predicting that.
Yeah.
I will make some predictions though. Who are the next 2 vendors to join? I predict Databricks will join this Magic Quadrant next year.
Yeah.
That's my prediction. And then I predict the year after that, Omni will join the Magic Quadrant. Now, they try to keep it at 20. And so that means we're going to have to say goodbye to 2 dearly departed friends. And I predict that those 2 friends will be Incorda, will be dropping off of the Magic Quadrant next year. And then SciSense will drop off the year after. And that's not because these aren't good tools. Actually, Incorda, I have a very high opinion of. But I just think Incorda has struggled to define itself in the BI market. It's not sure what it needs to be. And I think it's kind of reached a stage where, if it doesn't achieve some really significant liftoff in the next year or 2, I just don't see it. And with SciSense, we compete with SciSense a lot. And I just think they're just, they're struggling. And so those are my big predictions. So that's our Magic Quadrant show for 2025. What do you think, Eric?
Looks a lot like last year's.
Yeah. Yeah.
Also, I'm surprised with the changes because this is an evaluation of the company. I'm surprised Tableau moved up instead of down, just a little bit. I was expecting stay basically where it was. It basically stayed where it was, but I expected it to stay where it was and go down a little bit, not go up a little bit.
Yeah,
The trajectory of Tableau, it just seems like it got bought out by Salesforce, and now it's kind of people are kind of getting sour on it. It's like, why don't we just go to Power BI?
Yeah,
that's one of the surprise takeaways that I got. It's like, that didn't change.
Yeah, I agree. I've expected for years now for Tableau to start falling because that's what we hear too. Tableau users are unhappy. Companies are fleeing Tableau. Mm-hmm. At Good Data, we get the number one tool when someone comes to us and they say, I'm leaving tool X. It's Tableau.
Yeah.
Number one by far.
Plus, if the market is shifting towards if Gartner is valuing composability and your tool has all these other, it's not just the BI tool, it's all these other things. And it's like, well, Tableau, you got Salesforce, I guess, but this Tableau doesn't really doesn't have all this stuff, doesn't have that metrics layer, doesn't have all this other stuff, at least not good. So it's like, how is it still up there?
Right. Right. And so that just about wraps things up. Before we end, we do need to thank again.
Well, before you thank them, though, like and subscribe, people.
Oh, yeah, we never say that.
Button. If you like what you saw, subscribe. We're here. We do seasons. I think we have 3 more episodes this season. We're every Thursday during our seasons. We're going to take a summer break. But Super Data Brothers, find us on YouTube and LinkedIn. Thank you. All right, now you can go into that.
All right, yeah. No, really, we need it, though. Please. If you like what you saw, tell your friends. All right. And then also tell Good Data, right? When you get a hold of Good Data, say, we heard about you on the Super Data Brothers show. Mm-hmm. That would be swell. Good data on the Magic Quadrant. Again, for the third year running, the Business Intelligence MQ 2025. Get your copy at the link you see on the screen, complimentary, of Good Data, and find out why Good Data is one of the vendors who moved the farthest on this year's MQ. Check it out, folks. All right. Well, Eric, that was a brisk 1 hour show. I think we covered a lot of ground.
Yeah.
We will be back next week. I'm gonna have to check to see who the guest is, because there's been a lot of guest shuffling this season. As summer comes around, and people who said, yeah, I can make it that weekend, that Thursday 5 months ago, now say, oh, I can't make it.
Yeah, makes sense.
It does make sense. So, but we'll be back next Thursday. Like Eric said, we're going to wrap up season 3, take a break. Season 4 will start in the fall, I think, with a new show format. So you'll want to tune in for that. So yeah, take care, everybody. Stay out of the heat if you're somewhere that's brutally hot like it is here in Michigan. And
I had to turn my AC off because it made too much noise. So
you gotta get
a little hot up here.
Gotta get like an A. Don't you have a mic?
Yeah.
I mean, like a mic?
Yeah, I just haven't set it up since moving my computer.
It's got a. Well, we'll talk about it later. All right. Until next time, everybody.
All right.
I am Ryan.
I'm Eric.
We are the Super Data Brothers. Take care. Goodbye.
Thank you. Goodbye.